Good evening, I'm Lauren Saxberg at NewsWorld's National News Center. The death toll in Walkerton, Ontario has risen to 7, and the province's coroner suspects 2 other deaths are related to the deadly E. coli outbreak. As the CBC's Norman Hermant tells us, the provincial government has decided to order a public inquiry.
For a town already hit hard, it was another blow. News that E. coli in the water may have killed even more people. The chief coroner's office is investigating 9 deaths, and it wants to hear from relatives of anyone who died here in the last month, especially anyone who had symptoms of E. coli before they died.
Many of the people who have died are elderly, and at the time it may have been that both the family and the physician looking after the individual did not think that the diarrhea for 24 hours was really very significant at that time.
Have you closed the door on it, or are you saying no? That
I never closed the door on anything. I said I want to get to the bottom of this.
Ontario's government had been resisting pressure to launch a public inquiry. Today, the province gave in.
The Premier has today announced that in order to get to the bottom of the Walkerton tragedy, the Ontario government will appoint a judge or a retired judge as a commission of inquiry under the Public Inquiries Act.
Back in Walkerton, all of this is taking a psychological toll. People are bored, kids are still out of school, and they resent the way they're being treated. Things like soccer games in other towns are being canceled. Fear of E. coli is the reason.
Unfair?
Yeah. Really unfair, yeah. But I just don't know why they, don't want to play us.
It's much the same story here. Many clients from outside of Walkerton just don't want to be near Judy Gingrich or her nail salon. She says Walkerton has become a dirty word.
Oh, Walkerton. And it makes you feel, bad that people think that that we're kind of a new leper colony that has just sprung up.
People here are tired of getting their water from a warehouse. They want to know when their water is going to be safe, and they may be getting at least some answers on Friday, with the next briefing from the team that's searching for the cause of this deadly outbreak. Norman Hermant, CBC News, Walkerton, Ontario.
The nation has bid a final adieu to a legendary hockey hero. Political leaders and hockey stars past and present were among those who came to say goodbye to Maurice de Chartres, and tens of thousands gathered outside the church for today's service. The CBC's Tom Kennedy reports on the emotional farewell.
The rocket could always attract a crowd. Tens of thousands lined the route he sometimes took as a young man when he was a champion, when Stanley Cup parades through Montreal were commonplace. It was a long time ago. Quebec never forgot. At Notre Dame Cathedral, thousands more, including a few who played with Richard, aged with him, and who watched as he became a Quebec icon.
This has been going on for 50 years and more. I think a lot of people identified themselves to Maurice. They wanted to be like him.
Also, some of those who played against him.
Thank you for making this game a very popular game so we can come along and make a living with it. And we like to beat him, and he liked to beat us, but today we're all with him.
And today's players, the politicians, prime ministers, past and present.
Oh, it's a big loss. He was a friend, and I met him many times, and I was supposed to go fishing with him this spring. And unfortunately, we could not. There was some kind of a collective transfer of people's hopes and aspirations in this man, in this only one man. And it was certainly quite a burden for him, but he discharged it very well.
Arriving with him, those who will miss him the most. Richard's wife, his 7 children, his grandchildren, brothers and sisters. They were all here to mourn a man who was born to a Montreal working-class family, who became an athlete, and who often described himself as just a hockey player. He was wrong. The Archbishop of Montreal, Jean-Claude Turcotte.
Intense. Passionné.
Richard was an intense man, he said, who felt passion for his sport, for his family, and his people. Richard was also a man who loved fishing, and the Archbishop's final words.
Bon repos, Maurice. Bonne pêche.
Have a good rest, Maurice, and good fishing. And Richard's son, Maurice Jr., who said he had a message from the entire family.
D'accepter le départ de Maurice, mon père.
Accept his passing with joy, he said. My father had a full life, surrounded with love. He had a phenomenal career, and if he is watching today, he'd be very proud.
Merci à tous.
It was one of the biggest public funerals ever held in Montreal. People paid their respects as they could. Quebec star Jeanette Renaud did it by singing. The words are a tribute to those who go away, a tribute to a man who was the greatest scorer of his time, a ruthless competitor who even 40 years after he retired remained one of the greatest sports heroes in Canada's history. And for the last time, the city said goodbye. Tom Kennedy, CBC News, Montreal.
The Sechelt Native Band has pulled out of BC's land claim process. It's ripping up last year's tentative deal with the province and Ottawa and will try its luck in the courts. Today, a totem was raised to symbolize the new direction the band intends to take.
Survival as a people, and we're doing this for the future of our children, and we're going to stand up and fight for what we believe is ours. So as of today, we're giving notice that we are going back to court and fight for our territory.
The Sechelt deal was the first of its kind in British Columbia. Now the government fears this turnaround could lead to the collapse of other land claim negotiations. In Ottawa today, the opposition demanded a group of Canadian soldiers be punished for trying to harm a superior. Matt Stopford served in Croatia in 1993. Yesterday, he found out that his own troops tried to poison him. Investigators say they can prove it, but they can't lay criminal charges. And as the CBC's Maite Ormachea reports, critics say that's not good enough.
No further comment can be made.
They investigated it for a year. Disturbing allegations Canadian soldiers in Croatia might have tried to poison one of their own.
This is a case that we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt based on 74 interviews. In fact, there is no doubt.
No doubt at least 6 soldiers tried to poison former peacekeeper Matt Stopford. They poured antifreeze, naphtha, and boot blackener into coffee intended for him. No doubt, say investigators, no charges either. It's too late under military law, and there's not enough evidence under criminal law.
You got to put a price on what my life's worth. The government has to do that. And unfortunately, the only way to make these people accountable that are in charge is going to take them to court.
Matt Stopford says he's seen no justice.
This type of conduct is unacceptable in Canada and is scandalous in the Canadian Armed Forces.
Within a few days, we'll announce an action plan that will be both quick, fair, and decisive.
Not good enough, says the opposition. It wants criminal charges laid.
An issue that hasn't been completed and the suggestion that 6 or 10 people tried to poison their superior, you can't leave that in the military. That will rot.
This retired colonel says he doesn't trust the military either.
I have no confidence that behind closed door, under the control of senior generals of the Canadian Army, they're going to do what's right.
Colonel Michel Drapeau says yesterday's findings just paved the way for a military cover-up. But the lead investigator repeated today there simply isn't enough evidence to go to criminal court.
It's a stretch to suggest that the Canadian Forces National Investigation Service, the RCMP, major crime detectives from the OPP, and criminal lawyers from the Department of Justice somehow all got it wrong.
As for Matt Stopford, he's realized there are a lot of people fighting for him, but he says the military is still fighting against him. And as long as that happens, Stopford says he's no further ahead. Maite Ormachea, CBC News, Ottawa.
Overseas, an armed gunman is still holding at least 23 children and 2 teachers hostage in a Luxembourg preschool. He's demanding to be flown to Libya. Earlier, 8 children were released after the man spoke with a psychiatrist. Emergency crews in the small town are standing by. The 39-year-old man is armed with a pistol, grenade, and a knife. Police say he has a history of mental illness. An Ontario man is a millionaire today thanks to some quick thinking and shock jock Howard Stern. Dwayne Allen competed in a trivia contest this morning on Stern's syndicated radio show. Contestants had to answer 5 questions to win $1 million.
The millionaire, he's unemployed right now. Dwayne, you answered all 5 questions.
What is Wayne to say?
The questions ranged from naming the U.S. Attorney General to Jimi Hendrix's instrument of choice. Allen competed against an Australian and 2 Americans. Remember, for news and program highlights all the time, including NewsWorld's latest newscast, check our website at newsworld.cbc.ca. That's the news. I'm Lawrence Saxberg. Stay with us now for a NewsWorld special, A Farewell to Maurice de Chartres.